You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Boyce Watkins.
What's happening, brother? How you
He's
doing?
back. Good morning.
Thank you for coming back,
morning.
Dr. Boyce.
I'm glad to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
I love the messaging on your shirt, man. Own or be owned.
Yes.
Expound on that. Well, first, let me tell you about Dr. Boyce is a financial advisor, if you don't know. Would you consider yourself a financial
A
advisor?
little more than that.
I'm a black man with a purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I see it. And I happen to be a finance professor. Me being black is kind of first and foremost.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, own or be owned. What's that mean?
Well, my homeboy Andre Hatchett, who runs Black Men United, he basically made these shirts, and I like it because it's a real simple way of explaining really life. A lot of people are in slavery and they don't even know they're in slavery. They think slavery is like an on-off switch, either you're a slave or you're free. But, when you get up every day, if you can't decide what you're going to do that day, then to some extent somebody's controlling your life. Mm-hmm. So one of the big things that we're big on is just, finding ways to own things, making ownership an important part of the wealth building conversation.
Right.
Because when you own nothing, then typically somebody owns you, somebody controls you. So that's what it's all about.
Now, what about those who work a job, who work for somebody, and they're like, what do you mean own or be owned? I work for someone. How am I going to own something?
Well, there's nothing wrong with working for somebody. The question is, are you secure enough? Like, are you in a position where you got, your FU money? Your FU money meaning, like, if your boss says something you don't like, can you say, F you, I quit? And you have options, So what I tell people is that it's okay to have a job and work for other people, but the question is, what are you doing with that money you get on that job? Is your goal to actually own part of a business, own some real estate, own something that's going to accumulate a value that goes beyond just selling your labor? So ultimately, ownership needs to be part of the wealth conversation, because right now we talk about wealth in terms of just how big your paycheck is. And the thing about a job that is confusing for people is that no matter how many years you put into that job, no matter how hard you work, no matter how much sweat you put into that company, that ain't your company.
Gotcha.
You can't pass that to your kids. Right. You'll work yourself into a grave, and then they will replace you in a week as if you were never there. Correct. So to some extent, if that's all you do, if that's your whole economic hustle, you're kind of a little bit like an economic babysitter, which is very different from having your own kids.
Now, let me ask you this. Somebody called for Asky for some advice, and his question was, he's a retired drug dealer. Fortunately for him, he's never gotten into too much trouble, just a couple months here and there in jail. And he wants to start his own business. So for the past 3 years, he got a food truck. Unfortunately, he doesn't really have the money or the time because he's had to work a job at the same time trying to get this food truck off the ground. But he finds himself dumping all this money into it. He has a couple of baby moms that he's got to take care of as well. So he's like, every time I turn around, I have to put out money here, money there. What advice would you give somebody like that? They're trying to get on their feet. They've invested their money into something, but they also have to work a job in order to finance what it is that they're doing. And he said he doesn't have anybody that can help him, like any investors or family members that are like, here's a check for this, here's some money.
Well, that's a pretty common problem. The first thing I'll say, just starting from the ground level, is that, I don't know if he's a brother or not, but what I tell all the brothers, especially those who did time in the pen, is your number one play is learning entrepreneurship. Every black man in America should learn how to start his own business as a key to his economic survival, because black and brown men have the highest unemployment rates in the country. And even if you get the job, you're typically either underemployed or you're unhappily employed. Meaning you got a job, but you hate your life. And so really a way to change the game point blank is if we just said, every black boy is going to learn how to start a business as a rite of passage from before he's the age of 12.
By the way, being a drug dealer is being an entrepreneur. You just got to redirect that energy into something positive.
Bingo. Exactly. Yeah, find a way to legally trap, right? I mean, as you know, drug dealing is nothing but entrepreneurship, just in a higher risk, more difficult environment that requires far more intelligence, right? So he's already got everything he needs to be successful. I would also say that when you're talking about raising capital for a business, a lot of people, when they talk about raising capital, they're always thinking about money. Like, I need money. Well, most wealth actually is not money. Most wealth is not financial. I know when I started my business, I didn't have a lot of the money that I needed to do what I needed to do. But what I found was that there was a lot of capital to be found in relationships. I talk to my friends, give them an IOU, they come help me out, stuff like that. A lot of sweat equity, meaning the time I put in, things like that. And so what I would say to him is just know that entrepreneurship is kind of a culture. and it's a little bit like hip hop, right? If I wanted to be a rapper, it's not just about me going in the booth and on that day and learn how to make a good song. I'd have to sort of be around it. You know what I mean? I go to maybe the South Bronx and just be part of the culture, and eventually it will sink into my subconscious and become part of who I am. Or like being a great basketball player where you just make moves and you don't even think about it. Entrepreneurship is similar, right? So if I was trying to really become a good entrepreneur and I was sort of in a spot like him, I would start reading everything I could about entrepreneurship. I would, hang out with people who are like-minded entrepreneurs. I would listen to podcasts on entrepreneurship and just obsess myself with it. Because really, that was the moment I became free, was when I learned how to have a business. And so for so many of these men that are out here that are kind of stressed out and struggling, I think that becoming entrepreneurs, if we put as much effort into becoming entrepreneurs as we put into becoming great basketball players, great football players, and great rappers, we would literally flip the game over in one generation.
Oh, absolutely. But, young black kids, the only reason we gravitate towards those things is because those are the people who look like us that are successful.
Right.
So usually it's in entertainment or in athletics or something like that.
Well, you know what? If you read books like Powernomics with Dr. Claude Anderson, he says that we should own those industries, like that we should control those industries. But to really become the boss, you have to enter the game thinking like a boss. Every economic system is like a building where you got some people that come through the basement and try to climb up. And then you might have some people that take a helicopter and land on the roof, and they start at the top. So your thinking has to sort of start at the top. Like, for example, if I want to be a hairstylist or I want to go into the entertainment industry, I can go into the entertainment industry thinking, or become a hairstylist and say, okay, I want to do hair and I want to.
Why'd you say hairstylist?
Because my daughter's a hairstylist.
Okay.
And here's,
like, you bald.
No. Here's the thing.
You can do hair. You can be bald and do hair.
I do not do hair. I know nothing about hair. I don't even have any hair.
So you've never done anyone's hair?
Yeah, I've never done anybody's hair. No, let's not get that rumor started. We will not. But my daughter is like a genius at doing hair. And so our conversation about hair was, like, I think for her it was like, well, my dad's a college professor and I don't know how people are going to feel about me being a hairstylist. I said, You're right sitting on a pot of gold. Like, that's where the money's at. Black women are spending like crazy amounts of money on hair.
The hair industry is huge for us.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a lot of women will go homeless and be broke before they go without getting their hair done.
Emmy was making fun of my hair just this morning because I tried something different.
Oh, no.
No, I literally seen a homeless woman with a lace front.
Oh, wow.
And that bugged me up.
That's deep. That's really deep.
I wanted to ask you about life insurance.
Yes.
I know a lot of us don't have life insurance, and if we do, it's not enough to really cover anything. Can you talk about the benefits of having life insurance, and how much should somebody have per kid if they have a couple of kids, say 2 kids or something like that?
Let me say this. Simmons College at HBCU in Kentucky, they just opened up an economics center, the Boyce Watkins Economic Empowerment
Congratulations.
There you go.
Thank
Drop
you,
on the clues bomb for that, damn it.
Thank you. And one thing I told them is that I said, I will not allow anybody to take a class from me unless you have life insurance. If you have children and you do not have life insurance, I would have to say that you don't care much about your kids.
Right.
Because life insurance doesn't cost more than it costs to go to McDonald's or go to the movies or buy a pair of sneakers or whatever.
That's a fact.
But a lot of people will do those other things before they get the life insurance to protect their children. You hear about so many people that die and their relatives are dealing with the stress of the death, but they're also dealing with the humiliation of having to go, open a GoFundMe page or beg the church to get the money for the burial. Yeah. So everybody should have life insurance.
Even if you don't have kids?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you don't have kids, because when you die, somebody's got to pay to bury you. And really that even goes deeper into the discussion about just making sure you have your arrangements in place, so that, because if you don't, what'll happen is everything that you have, anything you leave for anybody is going to get caught up in probate. Uncle Sam's going to take a big chunk of it. And so a lot of times you hear about even Prince. I think Prince died. I don't know if Prince had a will. That's what
that's what it was. He didn't have a will.
And that's messy. That creates chaos. So really,
should we have a will now?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I should have a will?
Yes.
I haven't never thought about that.
Absolutely.
Healthcare
proxy and all that. The reason I asked that is I had a neighbor who passed away, and when he died, he left his family $30 million from life insurance. And I was like, holy cow. So I called the life insurance policy because I wanted to know how much. I have a life insurance policy, but it ain't $30 million. But I called and just to see the numbers and how much it was. And I thought about it, and I said, if I can spend money on this and spend money on that, why shouldn't I make sure my kids' future is well? So I did put up, I hope my wife and kids don't kill me now, but I did increase it to make sure that they were good when I passed away. And I feel like a lot of us don't really know about it.
Oh, I definitely got me a $1 million life insurance policy.
Yeah.
Somebody told me you should have 2 though. Somebody told me this recently, like this week. They said you should have like 1 for the burial and then 1 for something else.
I don't know about so much having 2 or 3, but I would say, given that all you guys have businesses that you're a part of, you want to have, for example, key man insurance, because all of you are the key man, key woman in your businesses. So if you're not here, I think you got to just imagine what happens to this business if I'm not here.
Right.
So when I thought about my business, I said, okay, if I'm not here, I want to make sure all my partners are good. That they have enough money to replace me and deal with the transition. And so that key man insurance is really important. Also, the regular policy is important for your family. And generally speaking, I think that the problem that we have is that there are a lot of people who live life as if they're never going to die.
Right.
And here's the news flash. Look, you're black. We die more than anybody, it seems like.
You're human.
You're human and you're black. Right, human and black. And so my thing is that, you have to plan for that. And in fact, people, like, we'll go to church and we'll give money to the pastor, for a ticket to the afterlife. And I talk to my students in the Black Business School about the afterlife. But I say, really, the afterlife, I don't know what happens when you go to heaven. I don't know if, what that looks like. But I do know one thing about the afterlife is that after you are dead, after your life is over, the people you love are still going to be here.
Damn right.
And they're going to either receive the benefits or suffer the consequences of the planning you did or did not do while you were here.
Do you think parents should get some for their kids? Because my mom got one for me when I was a kid, and it's worth way more than it ever was. But it's actually, I could take the money out, and if I need to, which was dope. I guess she took out, a $50,000 one, very inexpensive, 35 years ago. So if I died, I could be buried. Do you think parents should take one out on their children?
Absolutely. Your kids have to be buried too. And, what's unfortunate is that you'll see a lot of times where, a child will die and the family doesn't have the money they need to bury the child. It doesn't have to be a big policy. And life insurance policies for kids are so cheap. They're so inexpensive. You won't even notice it, paying it every month. And I think for a lot of parents, it's just hard to even imagine
That's my whole
something
thing.
happened to their
It seems
child.
morbid, like, to take a policy out on your child. It just
Right. Well, life insurance policy does not mean that you expect it to happen.
I know.
It just means, it's like Chris Rock said, in case shit. In case shit happens, you want to be prepared. And you don't want to sort of compound the tragedy by having financial problems at the same time. Because a lot of people, most of our people, really, their biggest stressor in life is money, is financial.
Do you think financial problems can cause mental health issues?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
So
Absolutely. It affects your life in almost every way imaginable, from increasing your likelihood of divorce, increasing your likelihood. I'll talk about the stress. I did research on this, and the stress just of going to work every day at a job you hate, it kills you. You die sooner.
They said that's the number one cause for divorce is financial issues.
Yes, absolutely. And what I never understood was, I said, if money is the biggest stressor in so many people's lives, why don't we spend more time talking to our children about money? Right. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And I'm still trying to figure that out. But to me, I found that a lot of my challenges I face as a black man in America, I've been black my whole life now, was the money thing. It was like, I felt like I had to do all these things I didn't want to do because I was waiting for some white dude to pay my bills, and so I said, you know what? I'm sorry. My daddy raised me to be a real man, so my response was, fuck you. I'm going to learn how to take care of myself. I'm not a child. You're not going to treat me like I'm a little baby or a little boy. I'm not going to let you boss me around and tell me what to do all the time. I'm going to learn how to do what you did. There's nothing anybody else ever does for us that we can't do for ourselves. That's my theory on it.
I wonder what mental health issue is it, though, because it's not like it's a chemical imbalance or anything. And plus, a lot of rich people who suffer from
They
make
do,
it worse.
but,
It's like
but rich people have rich people problems, right?
Yeah.
They which are very different from the problems that come from a lack of money, right? Like, money does not, in my opinion, money will not buy you happiness per se, but it's the intelligent use of money that can help you position your life in a way that you're going to be happier. Also, a lack of money can create a tremendous amount of stress. I knew a guy that worked a job that he hated because he needed the money.
Right.
And he said that the stress on the job literally zapped the testosterone out of his body.
Damn.
He said I was depressed all the time.
Clinical depression.
Yeah, he said I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't perform for my wife. And I said, wow, like, they literally emasculated this dude. And after hearing that, and then he came out with this big box of pills that he had to take every day. He said, but I got it together now, Dr. Boyce. And I was like, I don't know if he does, because he sounded kind of like he wasn't balanced. And he had a big old thing of pills he had to take just to deal with that stress.
Wow.
You know, and he said, in fact, he also said that getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to him
Right, it's like a
because he
burden
gained
is
his life back.
lifted off of you.
You know, I wanted to
Yes.
ask you too. Like I noticed with a lot of rich and wealthy people, most of them don't use their own money to invest. They use you look at Donald Trump and a lot of his investments that you see never really came from his pocket. It is his money and grants or loans that he's got from other places. How do you feel about that? Because I look at that and I see a lot of people that invest money that don't use their own money, whether they get a loan or they use somebody else's money and pay it back, but they don't use their own capital.
Well, you know, a lot of people do that, and basically that comes down to how you see debt. Some people say debt is always bad. Debt is not always bad. Debt is powerful. It's like having a really fast car. A really fast car can either get you places quickly or it can kill you
Right.
if you
And
drive
crash
it
into a
recklessly.
wall.
Right.
Exactly. So debt is more powerful. So debt creates leverage, which means that if I have something I want to do, it may be faster for me to borrow the money and do it sooner than for me to save up the money and build it up, kind of bootstrap it and do it later on down the line. So the rule that most self-made millionaires have when it comes to debt is that they will take on debt under one condition, and the condition is that the debt will make you more money. Like now, if it's bad debt, like debt for, you know, because I went to Applebee's every day, or I went on vacation, or I like to wear Gucci, that's not good debt. But good debt might be debt for to start a business, to buy a home, to even go to school, as long as it's not too much. So I think it's fine. And really, what people have to understand is that I know we're very emotional about the Trumps being in the White House. But, you know, when I talk to my students, I tell them to focus on, like, let's get past the emotion. Like, think about it like a basketball game, right? You just lost by 20 points. You can get mad because the other team beat you, or you can go watch the film and figure out how they became so good in the first place.
True.
So with Trump, what I did with him was I went back and looked at, see, the thing about wealth is it's an intergenerational game. A lot of people don't get that. They think it's all about you and now. It's an intergenerational game. So I said, well, how did this guy get to where he is? And I went back to 1913. And what you saw was his father, Fred, was, you know, his dad died when he was 13. He was working as a carpenter's helper or something. And then he eventually trained himself to become a carpenter, and he made the conscious decision to become an owner, like buying property and renting it out. And so by the time Donald started the game, his father positioned him so far ahead that he didn't have to go through the struggle. He wasn't playing struggle-nomics. He was able to pay power-nomics.
Yeah, give him $1 million loan to get started.
Exactly. And the thing about it is that if you give anybody enough time, you can do the same thing for your kids. You just have to plan. And what we sort of lose sometimes in the struggle is we lose the desire to plan for our children. You know, Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, he said that the battle is won before it begins. So when I looked at this election, I don't really see an election that was won in 2016. That election was won in like 1937, when his father made that conscious decision to put his children in a position where they can make power moves at an early age. Our children can do the same thing. So rather than getting all emotional about the Trumps, I'm like, well, you know, there's another battle coming. You know, his son Barron, you know, he's already preparing his son to be a leader. Like, when you give your names matter, you know, when you call your son King, Baron, things like that, you're saying you're royalty, you're a boss. They probably, I can't imagine them ever having any conversation about him working for another person. He doesn't say, oh boy, you got to go get you a job, right? So later on, your child's going to be competing with the Barron Trumps of the world. Are they going to be prepared to compete? Or are they going to have to show up to Barron with their hand out saying, sir, can you please give me a job?
Now tell us what a Negro naysayer is. I saw you post that. I really enjoyed that one.
I saw that.
A Negro naysayer to me is somebody who finds a problem for every solution. You know, it's somebody who, when they're confronted with anybody who believes in the possibility of black excellence, they start saying, oh, well, you know, black people can't do this and they can't do that, and we ain't got enough, and we broke and we struggling. And I hate that. It drives me insane because you will never position yourself to be able to compete if you're always focusing more on your limitations than on your possibilities. Like if I told you I wanted to climb Mount Everest, you could probably come up with a list of about 200 reasons why it won't work, and maybe about 4 reasons why, how it, you know, in terms of how it can work, right? You would say, you know, you're fat, you ain't never done it before, it's cold, you know, all of that.
Right.
But do I really benefit from you telling me why I won't be able to climb this mountain?
Not at all.
No,
Yeah,
I need to focus on the little list, right? So I think for us, what we got to understand is this. Look, there's a difference between black people having less money than white people versus us truly being poor. I mean, it's not that we don't struggle. It's not that there's not hard times out here, but poverty, I mean, if you really want to see real poverty, and y'all have traveled overseas, you go to other countries, you're talking about people that can't eat. I mean, the idea of a fat person being poor is not even in their consciousness in some countries, right? The idea, you can't be poor and have Jordans on your feet and you eating at fast food restaurants or whatnot. So it does not mean that we're balling out of control, but if black people were a country in themselves, we'd probably be about the 35th, between the 30th and 35th richest country in the world. So we've got something to build with. The question is, do we have the mindset of builders, or do we have the mindset of borrowers, beggars, or people who are more likely, for example, to look for a job than we are to go start a business?
Yeah, those Negro naysayers are funny because I don't have a problem with you making me aware of all the issues that we are facing, but where are the solutions?
Exactly.
And if you don't present any solutions, don't knock the people who are trying to present solutions.
Exactly. People with that mindset, unfortunately, I mean, they a lot of them are mentally ill, in my opinion. Like they've been, because oppression works really well because they get into your mind so deeply to the point where you're not even going to try to compete. If I can make you not even try to compete with me, then that saves me a lot of energy from having to oppress
Absolutely.
you, right? So ultimately, as you mentioned, if you are just telling me all the problems, okay, tell me the problems. Tell me the problems. Tell me how we got here. Tell me why, everything's stacked against me as a black man. But at that point, I need a solution. If you can't give me a solution, then all you're feeding me is despair and depression, and nobody benefits from that. We don't need more depressed black people. We need hope, but relevant, meaningful hope. We need a plan. If you ain't got a fucking plan, then shut up. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cuss, but it's the truth. I mean, if you don't have a plan, then I don't want to hear you tell me why it won't work. I see black people. Here's the thing. We have people that claim that black people can't build wealth, but other communities know that we build wealth for them. The people that own the hair care shops, they depend on us to build their wealth. People who own, whether it's fast food restaurants or clothing stores. I went to a Gucci store.
We built this country for free.
Exactly.
As Angela Rye likes to say, we built this joint for free.
Exactly. We build wealth for people all over the world. In fact, I don't know if you guys know this, but for most people, if I were to just take all the money they spent, say, on fast food or going out to eat over the last 25, 30 years, if they put that money in the stock market instead of spending it, they would all have at least $250,000 in wealth. Some of them as high as $1 million because of the way money grows. In fact, a large part of the reason for the gap in wealth between the rich and the middle class is stock market participation. The wealthy people, they tend to put their people either who are wealthy or who are going in that direction, they tend to invest their money in the market. And a lot of us are afraid of the stock market. So we're missing out on so much money.
And there's such simple ththings that you can do to invest in the stock market because it's not like you need a whole lot of money to be able to invest. We were just talking about this yesterday. I think Bank of America has something where they take, just like Acorn, they round up the pennies of your change. Like if you spent $8.24, it takes that 76 cents and invests it for you. So every time it rounds up to the nearest dollar, and the next thing you know, you have a whole entire stock market portfolio.
Absolutely. We have something called the Black Stock Market Program where we teach people how to invest. And the first thing we have to do is break down all the myths of investing that make people afraid of it. And that was my thing. I wrote my dissertation on it when I was getting my doctorate. And the thing is that people don't realize how easy it is to invest. Albert Einstein actually said that compound interest, meaning money growing on top of money, is the most powerful force in the universe because he couldn't understand how literally a poor person could become a wealthy person in a generation by consistently investing in the stock market. And so you get apps like Stash and Acorn, or literally with $5 in 5 minutes, you could get started investing. And we do something that we call the $5 a day investment plan. I say, look, you spend $5 a day if you go to McDonald's, you spend $5 a day if you're going to lunch, if you're going to Starbucks, whatever. So I show them, I say, look, if a person, let's say going back, say, to the 80s or the 90s, if a person had invested $5 a day, in 10 years, they would have had, and this is in the stock market, they would have had in 10 years about $30,000. In 20 years, they'd had $102,000. Right. In 30 years, they'd have $281,000. In 40 years, they'd have $750,000. And that's $5 a day. Most people can afford that. Most families can come together and afford $5 a day because if you add up all the money that we spend in other places, we're giving our money away consistently.
I saw you tweet a question. I was wondering, did you get an answer? You said, do some of us have a habit of resenting black people who rise out of poverty and try to tell others to do the same?
I think that we do. Some people did answer, and it's true. I think that you have at least two types of successful black people, right? You got those people that say, I did it, you go get yours, or I'm better than you. And then you have those who say, I did it. You could do it too. Let me show you. Here's the blueprint, right? And we have some people who will resent the idea that you're showing the blueprint. They're like, oh, you ain't got, you don't relate to me. Like I'll go through that, right? I'll be like, well, look, here's what I did. Okay, I remember when I was so broke that I literally was homeless. I had to break my lease in the middle of the night. I had nowhere to live, which technically for a little while made me homeless. I know what it's like to get the lights cut off and not have roaches in the house, all of that. I've been through all of that. And I'm like, okay, here's how I went from there to here. And I would try to lay out the blueprint, and sometimes you'll still have people that will say, oh, well, you don't understand because you got money. And I'm like, yeah,
You
but I
didn't
didn't
start
know.
with money.
Right. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
So for me to tell you how to have the blueprint, I have to not have money too right now. That
Right.
really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you'd rather
Right.
listen to somebody that's as broke as you, or somebody that was as broke as you and got out of being broke.
Yes.
But the problem is, what a lot of people do is they want to follow your exact blueprint.
And they want to do what you do.
They want to follow. They want to be exactly like Charlamagne,
Yeah.
or exactly like Envy, or exactly like Yee, or exactly like Dr. Boyce Watkins. And we're giving you the blueprint to show you how we did it. There's never going to be another Dr. Boyce Watkins. Is it going to be somebody better, or somebody worse, or somebody the same? But we're showing you how to necessarily do it. You can't DJ the same way, because everything is a perfect storm for every situation. And I think people want to follow that. If I do exactly what he does, but it doesn't work like
The
that.
biggest example I
true.
think you can learn from any of us is you can do something.
Absolutely.
And I think we don't stress that success is subjective enough. Like, it don't have to be celebrity. It don't even have to equate to a whole lot of money. Are you just happy doing what it is
Are
that
you
you want to
happy?
do?
Exactly.
Well, you know what? It makes me think about something that you said. I actually quoted you on that, where you said that a lot of people don't recognize a good opportunity unless there's a paycheck attached.
Yep.
And that's one thing. And I repeat this story a lot. I don't know if I tell you this, but where I remember, it seemed like, I'm not sure, you can help fill me in, but it seemed like there was that time where after Wendy made her move, where you were doing the stuff in South Carolina, and it wasn't as big as what you have now.
Absolutely.
And what I tell people is that, he was as serious, of a host then as he is now. And so it's about making those investments. A lot of people won't lift a finger until they get a paycheck. And I'm like, do you know how many times I work for free? I wrote probably 2,000-3,000 articles for nothing before anybody ever paid me to do anything. And I think that really shifts to what I would call just the investor mentality. If you have an investor mentality, all that means is that you're sacrificing now so you can have something later. You spend a little time living like nobody else will, so you can spend the rest of your life living like nobody else can. And I think that we have to teach that to our kids at an early age, because unfortunately we have a lot of kids that are raised where they think if you want to get ahead or have some money, it's about going to get a job. And jobs are okay in some situations, but it's really thinking like an investor to put you in the position to be a boss.
Now, the subtitle of my book is "Opportunity Comes to Those Who Create It." Do you think that black people can actually create their own opportunities, or are we just sitting around waiting for the white man to save us?
Well, I'm gonna tell you what. We've been waiting for the white man to save us for a long time, and he ain't came yet. Really. Seriously. Like, if you're sitting on the bus stop and you're waiting on the bus, and they're telling you, no, just sit there. The bus is coming, and it's hot, and ain't nothing happening. You can start walking. Maybe you can go take that bus money, go get you a bike or something. At least if you're walking or you have a bike, at least you're moving forward. So I'm a big believer that the same opportunity somebody gives you, somebody had to create that opportunity. Now, there are those of us who think opportunities are just something that magically appear and someone just hands them to us. Somebody had to create that opportunity. So rather than teaching kids how to get a job, why not teach them how to create a job? Instead of, sort of going out and saying, okay, I'm looking for somebody to put me on and hook me up. What can you do that's going to position you where you're hooking yourself up? So even with the internet right now, for example, that's an amazing platform that gives you opportunities. You may not be on television yet, but you might have your little 200 or 300 followers, and you can grow that. So I
part
think
of what got me here is Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and all. Well, not Instagram yet, but just Twitter and YouTube. Just posting my own interviews and videos and things on there, and that's how people knew who I was. When I was on satellite, not a lot of people had it. So I didn't have any money to market or promote myself, but I just had an intern come in, film it, put it online, and that was it.
Absolutely. When I first got started, I remember thinking, okay, I want to somehow connect to this whole thing, news and entertainment and all that. But I never really came in sort of thinking, okay, I want to be a personality. I was like, no, the real power is the people who control the money and the distribution. So I said, I want to figure out how we can raise capital and create distribution channels. So that, because I knew that, the things I say are controversial. So I knew that even if I got somebody to give me a show, they'd fire me in like 2 months, right? So I knew from the beginning that I had to have protection and security in terms of how I built my career. So what made me really happy and proud was that I used the money for my paychecks, and I would just put that money in and just grew it slowly over time. Absolutely. And now nobody can fire me, and it's a wonderful feeling.
It's amazing how society kills our entrepreneurial spirit early, though, because kids would sell candy in school, lemonade stands, like trade baseball cards. Like, they'd find little ways to make money, car washes, and then it's just like as they get older, they just forget how to be entrepreneurs.
Well, I think that really speaks to the public school system, which actually they did a study on valedictorians. They found that valedictorians they do well professionally, they do well GPA wise, but they usually don't change the world, and most of them don't become millionaires. The average GPA of a millionaire in America is about 2.9. Because what happens with school is that school tends to reward conformity. Sit down and shut up. You sit down and shut up, then you're going to get a good grade. And so ultimately, I think that's where parents have to step in and kind of override the programming of the school system. Where you're the one, in my opinion, you as the mother, the father, you're the one who's primarily most responsible for your child's education, in my opinion. Waiting on these horrible public schools is not going to get us anywhere. These schools are never going to be designed to produce empowered, intelligent, active black people. So in my opinion, there are a million different programs out here. Like we have a program for kids. It's called Black Millionaires of Tomorrow, where we train probably about 5,000 kids on how to start a business at an early age. And so I believe that you as the parent can create that entrepreneurial spirit, because what black people need is we need to think in terms of developing our own systems, our own economies, because this economy was not built for you. Hollywood was not built for you. Hollywood was built by a group of Jews who were oppressed like we are, and they said, we're going to go build our own shit so nobody can oppress us and tell us what to do. And that's where all the major studios came from, out of a group of Jews who lived about maybe 500 miles from each other in Russia. So black people have the capacity to do the same thing. We just have to think at that level as opposed to trying to be an uninvited guest in somebody else's house.
But you know what? I'm seeing a lot of black people doing it. I'm seeing a lot of people sending me information about how they're opening their son's bank account and they're giving their son their own account to invest money and teaching their son, giving them $10 a month to show their son how to invest money in stocks and bonds. And I've seen so much with showing my son how to invest. It's amazing. He sells everything. He makes slime, sells slime at school. I mean, he's 13 years old, but he does these things. He sells Madden chips, and he's making money. He has an Amazon account that has like 2,000-3,000 in it, but he's only 13 years old. Wow. But this is with me just opening a business account for him. And the bank first told me that they wouldn't open an account because he was a child. So I opened an account in my name and gave him a credit card, and he was able to do it. But I'm seeing a lot more parents doing it, and it excites me. They're opening eBay accounts, Amazon accounts, and that's what we need to do. We need to teach our kids. Like, I come from a family where my dad worked 30 years, my mom worked 30, 40 years. They retired, and that's what it was. But like you said, they didn't own their own. They didn't own anything. There was no money for me when I got out. I had to create my own, and we have to do more of that, and show our kids how to do it, how to get it. I take my kids with me everywhere to show them how I'm making money, how I pay the bills, what I'm doing to make money. When I go to the investment, how I do this so they can see it for themselves,
Man, I mean, your son is a boss in the making. I'd be stunned if he ever spent any significant amount of time depending on a job. Because I believe that once you get that taste of freedom, the freedom of ownership and the power of it, you can't go backwards, Like, it's like an animal. If you have an animal, if he's born in a cage, he may think the cage is all that there is, and he might find a way to be happy in that situation. But you let him out, he ain't coming back.
And what I love too is with him, and I came from Queens. We didn't have a lot of the luxuries that I have now, so I wanted the luxuries. You grow up looking at drug dealers and rappers and stars and basketball players, and you idolize some of the things that they have. For my son growing up and having it, it doesn't mean anything to him. He doesn't care about a Jordan, a Yeezy. He doesn't care about it. He's more into, I just want sneakers because I got to wear sneakers. I just want sneakers because I can play ball in them, And that's the best thing about it. You tell my son, well, what kind of car do you want? He'd be like, I want a car that could drive around. I don't want a Ferrari or Lamborghini. he has that mind frame, but that's because he was taught and he's seen how much the bills pay. He's seen daddy make this amount of money, this much goes to here, this much goes to here, and he asks so many questions, so I explain a lot. So a lot of times I think with parents, we don't explain things to kids because we feel like, no, you're a kid, you shouldn't know. But we should explain to these kids.
Man, it's funny. I was talking to my friend. He's a rapper, Vigilante out of Kansas City. And we were talking about that very same thing. His son's a rapper, Riz Illuminated, I think is what he calls it. And basically, we were talking about how music, unfortunately, gives kids just the wrong impression of everything in the entertainment industry. You guys know better than me. And it's like I just sit here and I'm like, man, I really wish they could see how many people are broke, but they're pretending to have money.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's so sad because you're really teaching them at an early age, through media, how to commit complete total economic suicide. I think I might give away $1 million, because I feel good. No, I feel good. I'm gonna keep my $1 million. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy to me. I'm not making fun of anybody, but I think that we have to really challenge that culture and kind of say, what are we really feeding our kids? in terms of how they even view money. Like, what is money used for? And I think that exactly what you're doing, that blueprint, is the right one. And it's funny, like when I'm going to different places, I'm meeting people who are saying the same things. Because here's the thing. A lot of Americans, it's not just black people that are bad with money, that make bad decisions. All Americans are bad. Deep in debt. We're going to have a retirement crisis like you've never seen. There's a student loan epidemic on the way because the debt keeps going up and the default rates keep going up. And so really in our community, I'm not just talking about us catching up. If we start working with our kids early, we can take the lead. The communities we admire, whether it's Jewish and other groups, like we literally can become the source of envy in 50 to 100 years, but we have to have a plan, and it starts with our kids. It's bigger than just me and you. We're going to be gone soon. It'll be our kids and grandkids who carry on their legacy.
Where can they find you, Dr. Boyce? I like your email. I subscribe to your email.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, they can go to blackfinancialliteracy.com. That's blackfinancialliteracy.com. And also, if you want a free e-copy of my book, you can go to drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net, Dr. Boyce Watkins.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the knowledge. It's the
Always.
Breakfast Club. It's Dr. Boyce Watkins.
The Breakfast Club. Every weekday morning. Tune in.